Hello, everybody. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Welcome to the first virtual Shopify Meetup Miami. I'm Zilu, co-founder and chief marketing strategist at WM Digital, WMD. We are a creative branding agency that helps build and grow businesses. We expand our clients' customer bases by specializing in e-commerce, developing marketing strategies and tools, and designing all things digital. We're a Shopify partner, expert, and meetup host since 2017. Before we start, I want to thank you for your patience and sticking with us as we had to reschedule the meetup due to social and cultural circumstances. I know many of you are facing challenges in your businesses during COVID-19, with social distancing and other protocols becoming a daily routine. Like you, as a business owner, we need to pivot our operations and adapt to this new normal so that we can work together. At WMD, we work with our clients to develop a unique brand positioning with strategic marketing efforts and incorporate this new normal to all the work that we do. Today, we have an amazing panel that is going to discuss how to run your business during these uncertain times. You'll hear from our speakers that have different professional backgrounds and roles within their companies. They will share their strategies and tactics in adapting to this new era. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our incredible moderator, Richard Carreon. He's the Director of Marketing at Refersion, which is our co-host today. Richard, take it over.
Thank you, Z. I appreciate that. And welcome, everyone. As Z mentioned, this is our first Shopify Meetup Miami. And as you have, for those of you who were trying to join us last time, thanks for coming back if you have had the time to come by. So as Z mentioned, we have a great panel set up for you today with different perspectives in terms of the industry, from a brand strategist to an amazing influencer and a leading consumer brand. Before we get started, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. First is give you a quick tour of the platform Hopin, as well as run you through a quick agenda of what we're going to be covering today. So to get started, there are 3 sections within the platform. You'll find that on the left side here. So if you can see me pointing at it, there are 3 buttons. There's the reception, which is the first place where you landed in when you click to enter the event. That's where you're going to find detailed information about the event itself, the agenda, speakers, as well as our sponsors. Second is the stage, and that's where you're at right now. We're going to be hosting this panel until about 4 p.m. We're going to have a panel discussion amongst ourselves, and you're welcome to put any questions that you might have in the chat box on the right side. And we'll have a 15-minute Q&A where we can answer as many questions as we can of any questions that you might have of the topic that we discussed today. Also, we are going to have networking starting at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and that's a great opportunity for you to meet other attendees that are here today as well. You'll have up to 8 minutes to connect with somebody. You'll be randomly paired with them, and if you both choose to share your information with each other, there's a button at the very bottom of your screen, which you can then swap your contact information with that other attendee if you both mutually agree to do so. And if you both mutually agree to do so, you can download that contact information in your Hopin account after the event. And lastly, we ask that you respect all attendees that are here, as well as your panelists. This is a place of learning and nurturing, so we want to make sure that we are giving everyone an equal opportunity to speak their opinions, as well as their voice. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the content. So as you all know, the world is changing rapidly in front of us as states either start to roll back the reopening plans or pause the reopening plans altogether. It's more important than ever for businesses to be as nimble as possible across their entire business, whether it's from product positioning, brand positioning, to even offering some new products that were never offered before or could be offered before prior to this pandemic. Also, we want to talk a little bit about strategy, as well as how you can acquire some customers. And we have some great folks joining us. I'm going to turn it over to them to do their intros.
So, hi, everyone.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Sorry, that was my Siri. She went off.
Siri, none of us understand. We get it. It's a confusing time. So hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Wiesenthal. I am a partner and co-founder of Deerfield. We're a branding and strategy studio, boutique, based in Brooklyn, New York, although I happen to be in Canada right now, sort of escaping the dense city experience, but still operating. And my business partner is still in Brooklyn. And my background is started in traditional design and branding. And then in the last 10 years, really started to integrate a lot of brand strategy, both corporate and startup, existing brands and new brands, aspiring them to excellence, all through the method of cohesive, unified storytelling. And what that really means is assuming that a brand has an authentic truth, defining that, and then hitting go. It actually makes the design process a heck of a lot easier. It's not just about, do I like orange or not? It actually becomes really something like, based on the strategy we've all aligned on, this is why we should take this direction. I've also been an AIGA New York Board of Director and the Education Chair for 3 years. That was in 2011 to 2014, and was on the executive committee. And I've also been a design educator and brand strategist educator for something like 20 years, teaching at Parsons and the School of Visual Arts, currently in the Masters of Branding program. So that's a little bit about me. And now I think I'll turn it over to Gwen.
Hey guys, my name is Gwen Lane. I am the founder of the Spark School, an online learning community for influencers. I started it about 2.5 years ago while I was an influencer myself. I founded my lifestyle and travel blog, The LA Girl, and I've worked with brands like Disney, Facebook, Google, American Airlines, Target, Starbucks. And so a lot of people were asking me, how do I grow and monetize my channels? So I've worked with over 3,000 influencers, helping them grow their Instagram, YouTube, their blogs, and monetize by partnering with different brands and also launching their own offers. Before I started my own business, I was actually in the digital marketing space in the entertainment industry here in LA. So super happy to share with you guys anything from like growth building, communities, and working with influencers.
Hey guys, my name is Amanna. I'm the founder and CEO of BoxRaw. We started around 3.5 years ago. It was really built from the belief that the sport of boxing wasn't represented for sort of what I knew it to be. It was typically portrayed as this sort of brute sport, which only if you were in the elite, you could partake in. But for me, it was really more than that. I grew up boxing from the age of 12. It took me away from sort of life in the streets, and it taught me everything, sort of the founding principles, sort of where BoxRaw or how BoxRaw has been built today. I think we want to change the narrative of the sport. So yeah, we launched 3.5 years ago. We're a team of 26 now. We were 21 at the start of lockdown, and we'll be 38 by the end of the month. So we're really sort of scaling at a fast rate now. I think, yeah, we're a very purpose-driven company. The overarching mission statement, vision statement is to be the reason why the world got into boxing. So the vision with the brand itself right now is to really become the sport, take over. So when you say boxing, you say BoxRaw. When you say BoxRaw, you say boxing. We become synonymous with each other. And sort of outside of that, I suppose every single major sports brand in history, they've started off with a niche sport. So Nike, Under Armour, American football, Adidas, soccer, Vans skateboarding, Montclair skiing. It's been done with every major sport. The difference is now is we're at the start of boxing, whereby people are taking up the sport not just as in a professional capacity, it's becoming a lifestyle activity. So I'm really there to sort of pioneer in that space. Before BoxRaw, I've only ever been involved in sort of business, but I think from a young age I never sort of put the label of business. It was more so an insecurity thing. It was a way for me to fit in with the cool kids in school. We came from poor background from India. Naturally was bullied for having the shit clothes. So at the age of 12, my mum used to give me 50 pence and emergency bus fare. My friends in school, we buy the sweets in school. Get in, I'd use that money to then buy the sweets. I'd go home, mum would say, where's the 50 pence? I get hit over the back of the head. Okay, I couldn't do that. So instead what I did, and I think this is really where it stemmed from, I'd buy sweets in the morning, these 2 pence sticks, and sell them in school for 10 pence. And over time, that sort of idea sort of carried on to develop. By 15 years old, I was an Alibaba. By 16 years old, I was a bronze buyer, which means buying up to 10,000 units in a year. Went to university, started a boxing club. After university, car sales company, import, export, mobile phone app. If I listed you everything that I did, you'd think, by now this one has to work. And thankfully, I really found a passion, between the sport that I love, the fashion industry, and was able to merge those things. And yeah, I'm living the dream now. I'm working with people I used to watch on TV, the boxers I used to look up to, now on first name basis. And yeah, it's cool. Got a really great team, really great company culture. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. We have such a great panel, as I mentioned. I mean, we're all passionate about what we do for a living, from working with some of the largest, fastest growing brands, from Murin, Mel, as well as Gwen, working with some amazing brands out there and also teaching other influencers how to grow their own businesses, and then being able to help making boxing a synonymous thing with the rest of the world. And I think that as a mission is super powerful, which leads me into our first question around communication to our audiences, our customers, or people in our communities. During this pandemic, I mean, what are some of the changes that you have all seen across your own businesses from your POV in terms of how brands are communicating or should be communicating to those audiences?
So for us, if we remember at all points, okay, so our mission is to be the reason why the world got into boxing. And naturally, all of our content sort of pre-COVID was premised around the use of a boxing gym. The moment that happens, instantaneously, okay, right, from now on, no more social media posts to do with an actual boxing gym. We need to make it relevant. So past that point, we had to get our heads together when they first announced the lockdown, and we were here till 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out what to do. And we just, if our statement is to be the reason why the world got into boxing, how do we now do that in an environment where people can't go to a physical gym? And they'd be lacking motivation. So we really tried to look at it from that point of view, providing value. So we were putting on boxing classes, but not in the sort of generic sense that you saw a lot of local gyms doing. We for instance, we got Mike Tyson's former trainer. He'd never done sort of not so much live classes, but tutorial videos. So we did a 15-week training camp with him, just providing value to the audience. And that, I think that in itself, along with other sort of initiatives we did with social media, making it very relevant, being very thoughtful of sort of what the consumer's going through, shifting the narrative around sort of trying to get from the customer and more sort of give back, that it really helped us. Even just small initiatives like sending email campaigns around to do a sort of Netflix list, book lists, podcasts, things that could really provide value. And I think that's sort of testament to sort of the ability that we're in that sort of scale during this period. And I think just focusing, we really had to focus on what worked. Previously, pre-COVID, we had maybe 26 yearly goals. We had to whittle that down to 9 because they were just unattainable now. But that in itself, everyone's sort of taking their eye off all these competing things which weren't providing value instantaneously, working on the now. It really just helped align everyone towards the same mission. And so far it's paid off. Awesome.
How about Mel, Gwen? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you communicate to your audiences, or how you work with brands to help them to better communicate.
Sure. Well, I think so. We've been working with a specific brand, and I think I can just mention them. They're about to launch. It's called Emme, EMME, and the website is meetemme.com. And it's basically a brand that allows women to track the birth control pill with a smart device that syncs up to your phone, because surprisingly, 1 in 10 women in America have an accidental pregnancy, even while she's on the pill. So obviously something's not working. And our initial strategy was, maybe the problem is that she's not taking it with her. This on-the-go notion, trying to change behaviors was really important. So we designed this case to be specifically aesthetically beautiful, to fit into my life, her life. And the more attractive something is, the more you're more likely to use it and love it and make it as valuable as your phone, your keys, your watch. So then COVID hit, and we were right around the time of doing a photo shoot, which was also another challenge we can talk about. And we modulated the messaging from goes with you to something slightly different, to say, well, it fits within your life, and over time that will probably be a message that they'll activate. But dialing that down, because people aren't really going anywhere. And I think it comes back to this notion of sensitivity, just understanding your customers' place right now, and trying to stay authentic and true to your brand core values. And I think it's really hard to do that when you don't have a clear brand strategy deck that defines your vision, your mission, what's your character. And let me just clarify, vision is what's our future intent? Like, we're here now, where do we want to be next? Mission is, why are we here at all, and why did we create this product? Character is a little bit like, if I could describe the brand as though it was a human being, what are the words I would choose to describe, like Gwen? She's bubbly, smart, and I don't know, how would you describe yourself?
Positive,
optimistic, right?
Exactly.
That could also describe a brand, kind of like Myro. Actually, we also launched Myro, which is a refillable deodorant. And then your audiences. So right now, as COVID spreads, like in the Northeast, they're sort of relaxing things, but now down in the South and the West, it's getting worse. And so maybe you don't use the word, we just went viral. You have to be sensitive. And if you have an authentic core, like, for example, healthcare is really important right now, and not being able to go to the doctor is really hard. So get your pills delivered. It's a really easy message to make, and that's core to who they are. So from a brand strategist and brand designer, if you have the toolkit that you can activate based on essential core truths, then one, you can pivot really easily. And two, you can tap into an authentic place so that you don't appear either trite or profiteering or insensitive, especially like with the political situation going on right now, which is really tough. A lot of brands are, there was a big scramble that first week. It was tough. And if your mission and your vision is clear, it should be easy to speak truth and support what's going on in culture. So that's my spiel. Oh, and what I've been seeing that I thought was very interesting was how brands are doing this. So watching email communication, advertising, like Travel and Leisure is talking about planning road trips, not talking about travel really. And if they talk about international travel or getting on a plane, it's all about aspirational in the future, just to give people hope and like a bit of a daydream. And how to stay safe, tips. Real estate listings are starting to show, instead of a child's bedroom, a home office, which I thought was very interesting. Fashion brands are dialing up the casual and loungewear. And the ones that are doing well are not showing ball gowns and stilettos, which some are not able to do. Furnishings, West Elm did a whole thing on desks and desk accessories. That is not the primary sales, I would imagine, from West Elm. It's sofas, the big ticket items, but they're just like appealing to what people need right now. So you gotta be flexible. And the other thing is, we're hearing a lot from clients that it's not just that they want to show diversity, they want it to be built into the core values of who they are. Not from just front facing, but also how they build their teams, the way they think, so that the change is from within, and that's new. That's very interesting to me. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, because you had some couple of good points there. Really, one about a framework. So really, as a brand, having a framework of your true self, right? Just like we all have values, we all have a lexicon, we all have a creation story of some type. And so with that said, that is your core. What you're saying is that when things aren't the best or things have to be pivoted very fast, you can go back to that very quickly, right? And you're also right where it was very hard for a lot of brands. And I think this is true for across the entire industry from both B2C and B2B space. There was a roundtable of CMOs recently that was talking about how the level of the role of a marketer within the organization is no longer just about acquisition anymore. It spans across almost every facet of the business, even to a cultural level. So those are some really good points on just how that connects back to your brand. So Gwen, I'd love to hear about what you have to think about that.
Yeah, so right around March was kind of when LA went on lockdown. The week of my birthday, we were supposed to go to Sedona for a trip, and then that was canceled. And I had a campaign with a big travel brand in flight, and everyone was like, hold everything, we're pausing everything. We can't really talk about travel right now. This was before the borders closed and everything, but they were already anticipating that something was going to happen. So everything was put on hold. And then they got back to me about a couple weeks later. I think everyone during end of March, early April was scrambling on how do we change all our messaging content. We can't really talk about spring travel and spring break and that stuff right now. So for me as a content creator and as someone who works with brands, I had to be super flexible on what I was putting out there. And I also lead an influencer community. So I wanted to step up and be a leader and start talking about it on what my influencers should be doing, because we also had most of our contents planned out, because that's what I teach them how to do, is to have an editorial calendar, to have your shoots ahead of time. So it was kind of a whole scramble. I'm sure you guys can understand watching this, like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So the brand came back to me and they wanted to design like an in-home campaign. And so they had us create, in-home backyard kind of shoots. And as you guys saw, a lot of brands pivoted to at-home content. And so a lot of the influencers were creating content at home, sharing stuff from their own kitchens, stuff with their family. As you guys know, a lot of people were shooting at home. Even the news people and the media were shooting at home. And so I think it became kind of cool to see this other side of content creation where it's not so curated, not so stylized, and not so, like magazine style where it's more real content. It's more like everyone doing Instagram live. So there was this whole shift that I really loved seeing, and I'm still seeing today, which I love. And so there was a lot of messaging shifts. And for the influencers, they had to become more creative, right? We couldn't just go hire photographers and go on shoots and stuff. So it would be like a tripod and a clicker at home and like going around the neighborhood and looking for walls. So definitely had to be more creative, which I think is kind of fun, a fun challenge for us creators. So how do we do this more creatively? And for the brands as well. And I think just being able to be flexible and accepting those challenge. And thanks, Melanie, for saying positivity, because that's, I think that's all we had at that point. It's like staying safe, doing the social distancing, but still running our businesses, because at the end of the day, we are all businesses and we still have to keep the doors open, and we want to be able to pay our teams and, pay everyone and,
Exactly.
provide that and still provide help to our customers who are looking to us as leaders. So I think it was very important to make a statement. And also when all the things with social justice came up, I think it was super important for brands to make a statement. This was a huge discussion in my community with influencers, because I do have influencers. 90% of us are women of color. And so we decided to band together, amplify the Black voices in our community. And then we were, educating ourselves about the brands that were not working with diverse content creators, and we basically are now more aware. And I think I love what's happening now, that there's more of an awareness around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, Gwen, what's really interesting about that is if you think about what I just talked about, this notion of having a core foundation that's really super strong, then we can provide a clear brief to the influencers, or frankly, anywhere you're going to start shifting in advertising, whether it's repurposing visuals, getting an influencer to create, or a content creator, which is not an influencer, but just someone who's like making stuff in their house with googly eyes in your product, like that basic kind of thing. It all just provides a very clear roadmap. I would say that if you can't, as a brand designer, strategist, or you own a business, define what you would do in this moment with an elevator pitch. A 3-sentence, this is who we are and what we stand for, then it would behoove you to go back and figure out who you are and why you're here, and then let that all drive. And obviously, do an audit in your competition. Everything's changing so fast. But that would then give Gwen like you don't have to make it up out of thin air. You have very clear guidelines, and that keeps a brand's messaging very tight, even during a weird pivot moment. And you can grow out of it, ideally.
Yeah, and that actually brings up like a couple interesting topics there around creative and creative strategies, and maybe even some tactics. So we talked about how we've had to shift the creative that we're posting on Instagram from Ben's perspective, and then how we're taking photography for our customers, and then Gwen, how you're taking photography for your content. What are some creative strategies you guys want to maybe bring up, and maybe some best practices that you've seen work very well for your customers or for your brand or for your content?
Yeah, so for our content, we were, it came back to sort of, again, I'm going to keep saying this whole call, but the reason why the world got involved. So trying to bring people into the sport. So we had some tactics to do with, we did some high level sort of production, but we were quite particular, and we're doing a lot of sort of series on the actual behind the scenes side of stuff. But we did all our voiceovers through iPhone voice memos, and actually had the effect. And all of our shots were taken from like at least a streetway apart. So we had a really cool campaign called One Way Forward, which is really just trying to remind people to sort of address what was going on right now, but also look forward. And at the same time, be appreciative of what they do have. That campaign was really went down well, because it was everything sort of looked like it was like someone looking from their flat window, and you had this guy on the other side, which sounded like a phone. We added effects to it afterwards, so it really seemed like someone was talking through a phone box and just looking into the person. That's how we handled it in the early days. Since then, we sort of changed the complete narrative, and even what you touched on, Gwen, to do with sort of giving it for social justice. You know, we started to share stories that happened in history through the boxing circle. So we talked about a black heavyweight boxer who was arrested over 100 years ago, transporting a white lady across a border in America. And we were just sort of telling all these sort of raw, intimate stories. And that in itself, you know, not only did it help provide a voice to sort of black people, but it also provided value and educated people sort of through the sport of boxing versus it just being something that was done for hype. So everything that Mel's been saying about, you know, we need to have that sort of clearly defined brand vision voice. That's the only reason why we're able to do what we do now, because at any point where a decision is unclear, it's like, hey, is that going to bring the next man or the next woman into the sport of boxing? If it doesn't, then we wipe it away. So that level of focus, and I think that in itself as well, having to focus for sheer necessity, it's changed the whole company perspective now, and even how we set goals, as I touched on, going from 26 to 9. 26 was ridiculous. You know, this pandemic, of course, was just a focus. Yeah, but that's sort of what we did.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. Personally, I'm really fascinated, Ben, by your experience where you're running your own business, pivoting to make that work. And I think we're seeing, like, at least from the brands we're working with, a really wide range of creativity on how to create content in this new age of COVID, which doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. So, I mean, we happen to be kind of lucky, and my business partner's husband is a photographer, so they're quarantined together, obviously, or stay at home together. So we did a shoot for a client where they were the stylists. They were painting in their basement. Then they shot in their home where the kids were around, and we did the best we could do. Also, content generation, again, just getting in touch with people who are pretty good at it and savvy with an iPhone and can get stuff done if you just send them product. But generally speaking, I think also engaging your customer base, like you've been doing, Ben, to get people to join in the conversation is where it's headed anyway. And I think you can have different levels of brand visual engagement. So like Gwen was saying, you know, the super stylized, high end, like you said, magazine looking, like editorial style, or at least what the branded visual brand expression should look like based on, you know, what one brand looks like Nike versus, I don't know. Think of a totally opposite brand, you guys. What's the opposite of Nike?
Tom shoes.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that whole like their catalog or their online look would be completely different. How do you modulate that but still established. And one of the things we've been doing is hopefully you've got a decent shoot that can ride you through it. Stock, unfortunately, is a reality right now because we couldn't shoot with humans because you can't, because we're all disease carriers apparently. And so, you know, you do what you can, and then hire Gwen, talk to her about and her people, her amazing group of army of people who can do some really nice work for you if you can afford it, and if not, you got to get scrappy like Ben, and I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a balance of both, Melanie, right? Because like you can't really use like the influencer content on a lot of the high res stuff if you want like catalog or billboard or any of that stuff.
Hero
video. Yeah, exactly. So there's gotta be, I think people sometimes think it's one or the other, but it's not. It's all of the above, right? You want to get stuff from your current customers. You want to do some influencer content from people who have existing audiences. And then you do want to have, you know, some hero shoots for like quarterly or maybe annually. And so it is all across the board. I noticed we do have a question about that and in the chat already about it. And then stock photos when you have to and when you know it is an option for you. So I think as a business owner as well, like I have photos of my group and us all together, but we only do that like once a year when we're all together. And so I do repurpose. So that's something that I've told my influencers to do. It's like, there's no crime in repurposing content right now. If you tell your audience that, hey, I'm not shooting, I haven't shot since March, they're not going to be like, you should be shooting new content right now. I'm like, our communities are so understanding, I feel, and so compassionate. That's how I want to look at it, is that they're not going to be expecting us to be creating all these new things when we're at home, staying safe. Everyone's in this together and doing that. And so I think there's, your content can go a long way with repurposing. That said, if you are a product-based business, if this could be a time where you're thinking about working with influencers, because influencers are at home creating content. I'm sure you guys saw the big TikTok boom and everyone doing beauty tutorials at home on TikTok and doing dance videos and all that stuff. And so we're at home and we're creating content. We're still working as well. This is our business, right? And so I love that the brands are open to that kind of content and letting us create from home. Instead of, you know, having other expectations, like if we had to do more shoots and stuff like that. And so I had a great experience with the brands that I'm working with right now who are super understanding. The travel brand I'm working with, they're very accommodating. I told them I don't know when I'm going to be comfortable with promoting travel content, right? I don't know if that's August. I don't know if that's September. Like Mel says, like we all just have to be flexible. We don't really know what's happening right now. And I think if everyone's just on the same page about that, then we're all in a good place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this idea of flexibility, and it goes back to that being nimble as a brand, is very important. So I want to start diving in, and I know there's some questions coming in. We've touched on a little bit of them, but I'd like to hold those for the Q&A session at the end, because I think we can have some really good combo there. But let's talk a little bit about acquisition strategy and maybe about like, you may have invested in some of like in-person events or had invested in maybe some store space, but maybe had to retract that because people aren't out in the physical world. So I guess my question here is how have you seen brands, or for your own budgets in terms of marketing, how have you shifted those budgets into new addressable channels to mitigate the loss of other physical in-person channels?
I mean, from our perspective, a lot of brands are going D2C if they haven't already. Especially with startups. But, you know, the reality is the physical channel is just not there unless you're in like a big box store, which for some reason they're allowed to be open. So that's my perspective on what I'm hearing. But I think a DTC is like, actually doesn't take as much time as you think it would be to set up. We've seen brands move in about 6 months. With a decent branding studio, you can get it going fairly fast. And I wanted to mention that I just got a promo today from photography reps. They're now pitching photographers who have their own studios and all their equipment and can shoot your stuff for you. So they're flexing for this time because they're also hurting too. It's really quite smart, actually.
Awesome. How about you, Gwen? Did you have events planned out for this year? Because I know you had events initially planned for your community. How has that changed in terms of your acquisition strategy and maybe even some engagement from that perspective?
Yeah, so we usually have a annual event where all my influencer members come to LA, and we do a whole summit. And the last one was like a really fun 3-day event. We do photo shoots together, we do workshops, lots of fun stuff. And of course, that's probably not happening this year. So we're shifting it to virtual. I think most conferences this year shifted to virtual. I was supposed to speak at an event in Iceland last month, and that was sad because I really want to go back to Iceland. I went there for my honeymoon. So they shifted it to next year. So hopefully that will be fine by then. We'll see. We don't know, right? But as far as the membership community, I think for us, we tripled our membership in March to June. And I think it's because people were at home and they finally had more time. I think people felt like they had more time because they were at home, they were not commuting, and they've always wanted to start a business and to promote themselves on social media, to start their personal brand. And so we had a huge boost in memberships as far as my community. And then I think that as far as for brands, yeah, definitely the shift in the messaging. And then I always do a lot of live events promotion with brands. So it's all on hold, but some of them went virtual. So I think if there's a way for you to go virtual, just like this event right here, I think that people still need community more than ever. Now people feeling isolated at home. So even having like a weekly meetup or something that for your customers, and having people meet up and maybe do tutorials or hang out online, having that space for them, I think, is something that you guys could do for any of you.
Yeah, that's why we host these Lead with Content and Community, which I love. Ben, I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, for us, we haven't sort of, and I think it was a great thing for us. We haven't invested in any retail stores. We weren't planning on doing some pop-up events, but hadn't sort of invested in anything financially. I think the biggest hit for us was we were planning on moving to New York this summer. Moving the whole team from England over to America. It's our biggest market now, and we were sort of, deep in the visa applications and, slowly started to research for a place to start renting and so on. But, naturally that stopped, and just that in itself, like, I realized within a week that we wouldn't have been ready to move. Like, the company wasn't ready to have an office over here and over there. We already employed, I think, maybe 8 people through America, through Asia, and so on. But we were so heavily reliant on face-to-face interactions. Our internal processes just weren't ready for lockdown. So we had to really stress test the business. And, we made some fortunate hires right before the lockdown, which sort of helped with the organizational structure. And, the last few weeks we were able to really adapt. We talked about, regular meetings, sort of keeping everything transparent about what it is we're aiming for. And I think putting ownership on the person themselves rather than sort of having to sort of spoon feed them when they're in the office. So it was a struggle. It really was a struggle. Some people were at a breaking point. Thankfully we recovered from it. But I think the key is to focus on what matters. The reality is you can't change what's happening now. So you can either, and we were very much with this mindset, we could either moan about it and cry and, blame the world for our failures sort of later on in life, or we could just figure shit out and get on with it. And that was very much our attitude.
Awesome. So yeah, what about like operational costs? Like, I know you were just talking about OpEx for yourself, Ben. How about for everyone else across the board when it came to operations and maybe having to dial back on certain things? Were there any things that you were pulling back in terms of spend and then investing more on the other side? Whether it was people or office space, et cetera?
Well, for us, so we work virtually already. So luckily that wasn't a big shift in terms of, we didn't have to adjust to this notion of working on Zoom or something. Our clients are in San Diego, they're in Seattle, they're kind of all over. We had a client in Bermuda. We were doing some branding for a bank there. I just done a shoot in Bermuda right before lockdown. So I hear you, Gwen. We had to cancel our extra vacation. That sucked. But we did have to scale back. One of the things that happens to be our business model is we often will take on startups who don't have huge budgets and fund them with a bank. They have a good budget. So when things started to kind of dry up because companies, naturally started to retract their brand marketing or just put it on hold until anyone, you could assess the situation, we had to retract a little bit in terms of the team, but it became a challenge because we still were contractually obligated to deliver. So, it got a little stressful there for a bit, but I think we've come out on the other end. We managed to just reconfigure the budgets so that we could still have a delivery of the work. But it took patience on everyone, and it was stressful. So, stress does not help with creative process always.
It
and
doesn't.
I'm sure everyone's feeling that. I mean, you just have to sort of give yourself a break.
We'll have to go to the Sedona Vortex after this. Gwen, is that where you're going when you're going to Sedona?
I'm down. I was going to go hiking for my birthday, and we were like, are we still going? And it was like Tuesday, and we were about to leave, and then it was like, okay, I think we're not going anywhere. So that was funny. In our case, because we saw a boom in membership for our community, we actually invested more in ads, and I think a lot of people stopped their ad spend. So there was like a beautiful 3 weeks of very low cost for lead, cost for acquisition. And so we're like, I wish I spent more. Looking back now, I'm like, man, those under $2 leads would have been great right now. So our ad spend really went down because consumption went up. A lot of brands stopped spending. So I think that was there was a nice 3-week period, and then it kind of went a little bit back up. So we definitely did that. I'm like Mel, we're all virtual. So nothing as far as like a physical location or anything like that. Because of our influx of business, we're hiring. I think Ben is hiring as well, aggressively, hiring more people, and super grateful for the growth. And I think people now more than ever are interested in creating their own business, because now that layoffs are happening, unfortunately, and people getting furloughed, they realize that sometimes what they think is stable isn't stable anymore with a rate of unemployment. So people are actually more open to jumping into their own thing and doing their own thing and starting their own business.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah. Ben, were you about to jump in, Ben?
Yeah, just on the operating sort of budget, I think touching on what sort of Gwen said is that, in the initial period, the cost per acquisition went drastically down. And I think from there, which I think you can probably still try and leverage now, is that we heavily have to invest in stuff. Cash flow is king for us. It's a advantage. I really try to milk it with every customer we owed money to. For Facebook, for instance, we told them we can't afford to pay. And we tripled down on ad spend. So we got to the point where our account actually got closed down last month for 2 days because we owed them $500,000 and we hadn't paid them. And luckily we were back and forth with the sort of accounts team, and we got a payment plan with them, and thankfully we're paid off now. But we did that with everyone, from our warehouse to our shipping couriers, suppliers, and we tried to milk it for everything we could. And I think now is the perfect opportunity where it's not nice for me to say try and milk it, but when it's the fight for survival, you really have to sort of do a little and try and, I don't know, do something maybe in 5 years you think maybe that wasn't so nice, but it got me here. So I think really being advantage of every sort of government scheme. So even here in the UK, there's government schemes now about taking on new staff because they're trying to build the economy. So we're capitalizing on that. Like, we came to the realization that if there was ever a time to really try and scale a company, it's now. It's really cheap. We've got companies throwing many assets for loans and all sorts. So it's never, if you can be aware of the situation, I think now is like an optimal time to really grow a business, because so many of our competitors just haven't sort of reacted the same way that I would expect them to, which is strange. But if you're aware of what's done, then I think you do some really cool stuff right now.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I totally agree with Ben. Sorry.
No,
I totally agree with Ben, because like my primary offer is under $50. And so it's still affordable for a lot of people who are starting out, instead of a lot of online courses in the $500, $1,000, $2,000 space, which some people might be a little scared to invest right now, which is totally understandable. But with a lower price offer, if you can go digital, if you have something under the $50 mark, I think it's something that a lot of people they're still spending money. There's just maybe shifted on what they're spending on. But like in my case, I'm in the same boat as Ben's. Like, we knew we had to triple down because things were working really well, and we weren't just going to stop that at this time.
Yeah, and I think that was a great move for you, Gwen, for investing a little bit more on ad spend, because there was a lot of data to support that there was a 50% increase in terms of eyeballs back onto social media during the pandemic, and streaming video was at 53%. So those two things, very, very engaged type audience, especially with streaming TV, with the new types of technologies where it's addressable, whether it's a DR type ad, and of course on Instagram or other channels that are social driven, there's a lot of opportunity there for performance-based marketing as well. So yeah, I mean, that's kudos there. And I think right now with the boycott, things are happening a little bit, at least on Facebook, in terms of cost being reduced. But again, that's something you just have to keep an eye on from that perspective. So I guess go ahead, Mel.
Oh, I was just going to say, I remember when I was working at Victoria's Secret Beauty during the, recession in 2008 and 9, we saw 14% year-on-year growth in the beauty category, while we were watching our luxury competitors or peers, but luxury category just tank. So the assumption that you can't sell anything during, an economic downturn, in this case, a total depression, is not true. People still need that little bite of some luxury. It's just they might shift their buying choices to something accessible. So, Victoria's Secret and these kinds of mid-tier brands did quite well during those years. And once the economic recovery went in, they actually saw a reduction in their year-over-year growth. So if you're that brand, now could be your moment. It's the luxury brands that I'm a little worried for. And I think I agree, definitely. Marketing is actually pretty important, more than ever, to stay relevant.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and move into the Q&A. I think we have quite a few questions. I know, Mel, we have a hard stop for you at a certain time, but that's okay. We're going to still be around here, everyone. But with that said, we'll go ahead and start at the top, and I think we may have answered as well as quite a few, actually. Let me go to the right section.
And actually, let me just say that anyone feel free to shoot me an email, because I do have to pop off in 2 minutes, but I'd be delighted to hear from anyone if you have any questions. Yeah, so that's it. And actually, let me just say thank you to everyone for having me here. This was a real delight, and we're all stuck in our places, and it feels pretty special to have these kinds of intellectual conversations, and I'm not just chatting with the same people and my puppies.
Absolutely. We enjoyed having you. It's been great working with you so far. I know it was like a month ago when we first met, and we're all getting to know each other. So even then, that was a great conversation that we had. So one of our questions comes from Dara, and this is an open question, and it's talking about any suggestions when the age of your audience is very diverse. Many of our traditional customers are 55 plus, but new younger customers are finding the game of Mahjong. I hope I said that correctly. If you guys can put this phonetic spelling in there, that'd be great. And I'd love to try to say that correctly.
Yep.
Mahjong. Okay.
Mahjong, yeah.
Mahjong. I don't know what that is. Okay. I need to educate myself. So
our product.
I don't know.
That's crazy.
Our product. Oh man, I've been living in a box, I guess. Our product is our exclusive Mahjong dice and gifts for the game of Mahjong. We just created a replica vintage Mahjong tile set, mahjong.com. So any suggestions there on diverse audiences spanning, like how do you engage them?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I'm sorry to keep repeating this, but it'd be the reason why the world got into boxing. It really means that we can't sort of neglect any age group, gender, sexual orientation, anything like that. I mean, the first beauty of advertising means that you can really target it towards different age demographics. So that shouldn't really restrict you. I think you need to find the narrative of what sells that product to that audience firstly. Then I think you're going to need like a home base, which would be your Instagram page or website, which really sort of sells the lifestyle of what it is you're trying to do, and people understanding the why. But I think combining those two things of having like a base where people can go to, they understand more about the products, maybe you show it in a variety of age groups, but then be really targeted with the advertising. It shouldn't be too hard, I don't think.
Okay. Cool. Inclusivity. I love it. Absolutely. Some of my favorite brands like Fluid, which has a store in NoHo, which is, I believe, is the first gender fluid clothing store in the United States. Very inclusive, and I think they really took the right step beyond where we're at today, as I feel like as a social, like a country at the moment. But setting that aside, like inclusivity is awesome.
I think, let me just jump in because this is something we really talk about a lot in strategic branding and strategic development is we speak to a lot of brands that want to widen their audience and capture new categories, especially, an aging out audience. And one of the ways to really do that is to do an audit of what boomers like and where they live online or how do you connect with them. And then let's say you want to start to engage millennials or Gen Zers. Start getting into the heads of them. Start to see like Gen Zers, they're really into digital games. Maybe it's not an in-person experience that they want to have. Maybe you sponsor one of those, a video game influencer, and you do you know what I'm talking about, right? On the YouTubes.
Yep.
On a TikTok.
Yep.
I was reading an article in the New York Times today about how a game influencer just made $20,000 while everything was shutting down. So, if you really do an in-depth analysis of your audience, what we call is like the opportunities, the sleepers, who you're not talking to and why, what they like, what drives them, where they live in culture, what are the contact points, and is anyone else doing it or something like it adjacent that you could start to like trigger ideas on how to reach them and start from there, or hire a strategist to get you there to help you out.
Love it.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Melanie.
Mel, it was great having you.
We gotta chat, Melanie. Bye.
Yeah.
Talk to you, Ben.
Bye, Mel. We're going to continue the conversation, everyone. But Mel, thank you so much for coming. Awesome. So we have a couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about that because Mahjong is Asian in origin. So a lot of Asians play it, and maybe people are playing it with their older family members, or it's been something that's part of the customs. So I would really look for people who it's part of their traditions. And if you're going to go the influencer route, look for people who have already been playing, are Mahjong enthusiasts. For example, I partnered with a casino, and of course it would not be a good fit if I wasn't a gambler, but I happen to be a gambler, and I was like, I'm going to play blackjack. I want slots. And, you want something that actually makes sense for the person and it's authentically part of that person's life. So if you are going to reach out to influencers and have them create content for you, look for someone who already plays Mahjong, and maybe it's something that's part of a family tradition. And I think they could create some really cool content about that. And then from there, maybe their audience are also interested in the game or also play the game. So I think that there is something there. But as Ben was saying, you could definitely target different age groups and just test out which one does best and double down on the one that's doing the best.
Awesome. I got to check out Mahjong. I've never heard of it. I learned something new today. I always learn something new every day, actually.
Did you not watch Crazy Rich Asians? Because if you didn't, you got to watch it.
I did watch it.
It's the game that they're playing where she is playing with a mother-in-law and she has to be really, she pretended she wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yes. Okay.
It's like Asian dominoes kind of thing.
Okay. I got to check it out then. Cool. There's one more question, and it was actually back to our creative area, focused on using stock photography or your own photography, and if you've seen any time-saving cost differences, and especially when it comes to ROI. Ben, Gwen, love to get your opinions on that.
Gwen, I'll let you. I've no experience with taking our own photos, actually.
Yeah, so, as an influencer, this is what we do for a living, is taking photos and, incorporating into our own photos and the products into our photos and doing storytelling. It's funny because sometimes when people don't really know what I do, they think I just like pose with a like a Vanna White. I don't know if you guys watch Wheel of Fortune, but it's just like a model, like, here you go, buy my rock. But it's not like that, right? As you guys know, when you do a shoot, there's like a producer, there's a story behind it, there's a concept. So a lot of the things that I do as far as creating content is like, what is the story? Who's in the story? What is the energy? What's the conversation happening in the story? So there's a lot of thought and story that goes into it. And so for me, like, that's kind of why I love, working with brands. And with the brands that I consult with, I always say like, what is the concept? What is the story behind the shoot? And not just, I'm wearing a t-shirt, go buy it. It goes a lot more than that. For stock photos, I don't usually do it for my personal brand, but I definitely don't mind seeing it as a consumer if it makes sense with a product. And again, if you already have a big customer base, maybe you do something where you ask them to send in content, like user-generated content. I've worked with brands before where we did like a giveaway where if your stuff is, your photos or content is selected, we give you a gift card or something like that. And so you can do some fun, engaging campaigns like that where you source it, because you can be like, hey, we're not shooting right now. We'd love to see you guys' photos from home. And it might be even more fun than a stock photo.
Awesome. Yeah, I've had some experience with stock photos myself. And they can get very pricey depending on what type of royalty level you go with. But, from a B2B perspective, I usually tell folks, like, if it's relevant, it makes sense, and it's not the cheesy, what I'm talking about, cheesy lighting where they're shaking your hand or they have the teleconference thing, you're generally in good hands. Some recommendations out there for the creatives. You might want to check out Unsplash, which is a Creative Commons crowdsourcing photo platform. Actually, I believe the photo right behind us is actually a crowdsourced photo from Unsplash. Really cool. But with that said, it can be cost effective, especially if you're just getting started. But as I believe Mel was even talking about this at one point yesterday, where they highly recommend if you're having a consumer product that you shoot the photography yourself or have a photographer shoot it and not use stock photography. So awesome.
One more thing about that,
Yeah.
Richard. I feel like some people think that working with influencers has to be expensive or that it's expensive when it's not. A lot of influencers or a lot of micro influencers are willing to work with brands, and it would be less to work with a real person than buy one of these high-res stock images for a couple $100s. I know influencers that have worked on a collab basis and an affiliate basis and then pay per post starting at like less than $100. So I would really, maybe you're kind of scared to reach out, but I know a lot of influencers in my community would love to work with new brands, especially if they're just starting out. And even if they don't have a high level of following, maybe you're doing it to buy the content, to get the content in a more authentic setting rather than just buying a stock photo.
Yeah, that's a great point there, Gwen. And also for brands, if you're trying to scale your affiliate and influencer programs, there are a lot of great tools out there. Mention one is Refersion, just to put a plug out there. But with that said, there are some great brands out there that have seen a lot of success using affiliates and influencers, especially doing it at scale. Some brands out there that are very successful, example would be Pura Vida bracelets as an example. They are one of our customers, so giving you that full disclosure up in front. But with that said, they have a very, very strong community. And I lead with community, not ambassador or influencers, because these folks that are actually promoting their product are some of the most passionate people around it. And they do a lot, they take a lot of love and they take a lot of thought into how do they engage with them, whether that's through content, whether that's through exclusive content, through an email newsletter, or doing tier-like things. So if you, for example, if you sell so much product, you get a really exclusive bracelet, you hit the next tier, you get a t-shirt, you hit this next tier, now you're part of this even more exclusive group. So I really highly encourage you check that out. It does take effort. So I would highly encourage, make sure you have a strategy, just like any other channel, right? PPC, email marketing, they all have strategies behind them. So affiliate influencer marketing definitely has that. So with that said, I think we've hit time in terms of our Q&A session, everyone. I want to thank Gwen, Ben, and of course, Melissa, who's not here right now, but I want to thank you both for joining us today. If there's one piece of advice you could leave our audience off with before they head over to networking, what would it be?
For me, I think we touched on it in the chat. It's find your why. Know what your sort of North Star is, what everyone in the company should be aiming towards. And I think for us, that's been the biggest help during lockdown, where all decisions were sort of maybe in the early stages unsure. Just having that, it really helps to find a narrative, and coming from a place from authenticity, knowing that and then portraying that through social, website, ads, and so on. It makes you stand out, because I think in this day and age with so much saturation through social media, if you're doing lots of Instagram marketing, even influencer marketing, if you don't have that clearly defined why and people can see that you're authentic, then you haven't got hope in hell is the reality. So find that. When I found that, it changed everything.
Awesome. Hey, Gwen, it looks like your video may have cut out. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you see me? Hear me?
I can hear you definitely. We can't see you though. But if it's okay, we can still run the show.
I hope I'm smiling in the video. So my thing would be community. So I think that, as businesses, we can lead our communities. People said they can see me fine.
I guess my computer is messed up.
So I think it's lead your community. It's like people are looking at you for leadership. Everyone is definitely having a lot of uncertainty. And so if you do lead with your why, like Ben said, and giving them that certainty that we're there for them, we're going to be here, and, maybe creating some sort of safe space for your community, I think that's what's really going to be the difference for the businesses that are still around or are going to succeed during this period, as the people who supported their community throughout this crisis, because we don't know what's going on. Everybody is in the dark, but if you are there and you're solid, you show up, you send those emails, you show up online, you are accessible, you go live. I think people will definitely relate to that and connect with you. And you'll also be top of mind when they think of all the brands that either didn't say anything and kind of just laid low during this time, and the ones that actually stepped up and said something.
Love it. Awesome. Yes. Yes, this is great stuff, everyone. I'm just so excited to be here. I don't know why. So everyone, thank you again for joining us today. That's just me personally. I'm just a fun person and smile all the time. Anyways, so if you want to learn more about Refersion or any of us that if you want to learn about Refersion, go to go.refersion.com/Shopify. And we have a free 14-day trial for folks to get you started on affiliate marketing on our platform. Also, the Refersion team will also be in the networking area, as well as the WM digital team as well. And we'll connect with this panelist and see if they are open to providing email or some type of contact link, and we'll put those in the follow-up emails as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming. This video will also be available on YouTube, and we'll be sending that out in the follow-up email as well. But if you'd like to meet some other attendees as well, get to know, network, head over to the networking area. It's the third button at the very bottom of this list on the left side of your window. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, you will be randomly paired with another attendee. You have up to 8 minutes to chat with them. You're not required to have your video on, but we do encourage you to. And if you want to swap information, you're welcome to swap information there by clicking the bottom at the very bottom. And lastly, we do ask that you're respectful. We do not tolerate any harassment at all in these virtual setups. So everyone, thank you for coming, and we'll see you at our next meetup.